Hello, everybody, and welcome to Call Her Cat. Today, I have Dr. Ala Philip-Neri on. He is a performance psychologist and founder of Cohesion HQ. He has spent decades working inside high-pressure environments, including corrections, athletics, and leadership development, helping individuals rebuild identity, discipline, and trust after failure and crisis. His work focuses on behavior change under stress, emotional regulation, accountability, and rebuilding standards when life has collapsed. Dr. Al blends psychology, lived leadership experience, and practical frameworks to help people move from chaos to clarity. He believes recovery is not just about sobriety, it is about identity, ownership, and learning how to operate differently when pressure hits. We'll also be talking about his book, The Formula for a Balanced Life: Nine Strategies for Success. And before we begin, I just want to read a brief disclaimer. This podcast is not intended to replace professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. And with that, I will kick it over to Dr. Al.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good,
So is there
good.
anything you want to add that I missed about yourself that we should know?
No, that was great. Thanks.
Okay. So you, where did it all start with you wanting to become a performance psychologist?
Um, that's a good question. Um, I think organically, to be honest, growing up, um, I think growing up there were a few critical things now that I replay my life that probably has other people saw signs that I didn't see because I was maybe too young, that has ended me up here. My ideal goal was to go to medical school and be a medical doctor, and I really at that point, I was like, well, I'd be an ER doctor because I like the thrill, right? Like one decision, you either keep an individual alive or they pass on your watch, right? And
Right.
I thrive on that kind of stuff. And I always in the back of my mind was like, well, if I get burned out in emergency medicine, I'll do psychiatry.
Right.
Um, and where that comes from, I had an uncle who was a psychiatrist in London, and that's where I grew up. And he was always at AKA, the equivalent of like a state hospital. So,
Okay.
I mean, the
Right.
individuals live there, things of that nature. And
Okay.
as a kid, I would go spend a lot of weekends with him. We'd play badminton and, just kind of hang out. And he taught me how to play chess. And what was ironic is, sometimes there would be a patient who would just be wandering around. And and I was 8, 9, 10 years old, and I just talked to the individual. So fast forward, when I didn't end up going to medical school, I got my first job in youth corrections, and I was working the floor. I had gone back to London either for a funeral or a wedding, and he was fascinated by what I was doing. And he was like, "Man, this is really cool case study stuff." And I wasn't thinking like a psychologist, right? But he obviously was a psychiatrist, and and he said, "This is no surprise to me." I said, "Well, what's no surprise to you?" He goes, "Well, where you've ended up." And I said, "Why is that?" And he said, "When you were a little kid, like most people would freak out when they interacted with somebody who was, AKA, we'll just use the word different, right? Not maybe
Right.
not like you." And he
Right.
said it never freaked you out, ever. Like he goes, it just never freaked you out. Didn't matter what they were doing, you would just kind of look at them and you just kind of start talking. And he said, so this is no surprise that your career is going in this direction of, AKA, working with the, you know, however you want to label the population, right?
Right. Right.
Nonconformist, right?
Right. Right.
Antisocial, criminal, however, however you want to label the population. I'm not here
Right.
to label anybody, right?
Right.
But, the outliers, but per se, of society. And he goes, it's no surprise. And so I think different things happened along my journey. Um, I've always been a strong mindset guy. I've always been a strong accountability guy. I've always been a high pressure guy, like, raise the standards. And so I think it just continued to evolve right through my government career, through being an entrepreneur. And it took me a long time to find the right PhD program that really felt like it's not only that it spoke to me, but I spoke to it,
Mm.
because in doctoral
Right,
research, you got to fill a gap, right? You got to provide
right.
value to academia and the real world. And so it took me a long time. And when I found that program, I was like, okay, I think this is my cup of tea. And so that's where I'm at.
And what is, for those who may not know, what is a performance psychologist?
Well, think applied psychology versus like clinical psychology, right? So,
Okay.
people go to see clinicians to talk through, work through, right? Obviously, you see a psychiatrist for, medication reasons, things of that nature. A performance psychologist, what I'm really trying to do is just move you forward, right? Like move the needle forward. And everybody has limiting beliefs. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're at in life, everybody has limiting beliefs, right? There's a point of
Right,
self-doubt. There's a point of, can I do this? And so the performance psychologist is, I'm not going clinical. It's just like, okay, let's break this down. Let's break it down into habits.
right.
What do we need to change in your behavior? Okay. And for some people, right, real high level individuals,
Mm.
it might be moving the needle a millimeter, but that's what makes them better than competition. For other
Right,
people, it might be like, okay, we're going to run a 100-mile race to get you from
mm,
here to here, right?
right,
And so it's never the distance, because to the person, to the individual who wants to create the change, it's still emotionally tolling, right?
right,
Could be spiritually tolling, right? Physically tolling, right? Like to you, it's still a big deal whether you've got to move yourself a millimeter or you got to move yourself 100 miles, right?
right,
And a lot of it is just breaking it down and compartmentalizing it so that you create habits of success, right?
right,
And then knowing what to do when something happens that, AK punches you in the face. And it's not that you throw things away. Maybe you do. I don't know. Like that could be an appropriate answer. And you got to pivot and
right,
you got to do something different. But it's just knowing how to rebound from that without letting it like just crumble you, right? That's really, I mean,
right.
that's what I do with high level CEOs, athletic
Mm.
teams, right? Law enforcement SWAT teams. It's
Yeah,
really just about how do we get better, right? How do we get better? And then obviously individuals, right? Because it's, some CEOs want my services for themselves and for
right,
their company. Well, those are two different things, right?
right,
Those
right.
are two different
Yeah.
things. So yeah. So that's kind of what a performance psychologist is, at least in my lens. So
That's that's important because you have someone from the outside looking in.
mhm,
You have someone who's maybe outside the company and not like a psychiatrist trying to prescribe, someone who's trying to look at you as a human being, like, okay, what can we do better for this person, for this company? So
mhm.
you're not trying to treat like a broken arm. You're trying to like treat the human and make the changes to help them be better, quote unquote, better,
Yeah, because at the end of the day,
more productive, you know.
it's not my company, right? It's your company. It's not my law
Yeah,
enforcement agency. It's your law enforcement agency, right? What you're bringing me in is to be an unbiased third party, trusted, right? I have to earn their trust, their respect,
right,
um, and and also I think the biggest thing I have to earn is, can I take the gloves off, right? Because
right,
there's so many people that just want to sugarcoat everything, and it's like, okay, hold on, buddy. If we want to create change, like it's going to get uncomfortable, right? It might get
yeah,
uncomfortable for you, it might get uncomfortable for others, or whatever the case is. And we're not trying to disarray things, but so how do
right,
we do that and minimize that feeling of uncomfortableness and give people reassurance? But like sometimes it's just like, hold on a second, you're not looking through the correct lens. Like, how do
right.
you plan to double in revenue? Let's say you're doing 30 million in revenue and
Mm,
you got to hit 60 in 5 years. Well,
yeah,
that's a very different company once it hits $60 million. What does that look like to you? Right? There's
right,
a lot of growth pains along the way. So
right,
and again, it's no different for somebody who wants to get in shape, somebody who wants to try to get sober. It's no different. It's no different. It's going to take work. It's going to take work. But if there's no like and trust, and a respect, and it's a two-way street, then
yeah,
it's superficial at that point, right? Like I mean, you hear it
Yeah.
all the time in mental health work, and this is no dig against clinicians or anything like that, right? Clinical
Right.
psychologists or anything. But, where, people will say, well, they just don't understand me. They don't get me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe true, right? Because they're
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
textbook, but it also could be that they're harboring you down a lane that you don't want to go down. And so you're kind of being
Right.
and you're kind of being resistive, right? And
Right.
they're trying to push you to focus on XYZ that you've maybe hidden or whatever the case may be, right? So,
Right.
somewhere the truth lies in the middle. And I think it's just expressing that and getting people to understand that, and obviously coming out of youth corrections and things of that nature, running a juvenile prison. I mean, we had clinicians, we had psychiatrists, and I
Yeah.
mean, when they start pushing buttons, people start feeling uncomfortable, especially if the trauma was severe, right?
Oh yeah.
Especially
Right.
if the
Right.
trauma was severe, people aren't trying to re-bring that up like face first. And
Yeah.
I don't know that uh, again, I'm not a clinical psychologist. I don't know that you have to bring it up to resolve the issue. I don't know. Some
Right.
therapists adamantly say yes you do. You got to work through it. I would imagine there's another school of thought that says no you don't. You just got to accept it. And what are we going to do different? And what did
Yeah.
like things of that nature. And so, again, that's not my wheelhouse, right? That's not my cup of tea. So, but for the person,
Yeah.
they got to figure out what works for them, right? What's right for them.
Yeah.
So,
And like what you said, they have to get uncomfortable because growth is going to be uncomfortable,
yeah, yeah.
you know. And what did you what did working in juvenile facilities, what did that how did that help you where you are today? Like with what you have to do?
Yeah,
'Cause those are two very different worlds. Those are
very much so. You learn how to talk. You learn how to communicate. Um, you, we could use force, but it was always a last resort, right? And
right.
if we're relying on force, it's, the logic is, you know, I mean, at times it's necessary, right? If it's unsafe, whatever the case may be, but that can't be
Right.
your go-to, right? So you have to learn how to communicate. And you got these kids, and they're from all walks of life, right? I mean, all
Yeah.
all walks of life, and different gangs, different issues, different traumas, different mental health, different backgrounds, different crimes, and but somehow you got to create a culture,
Yeah.
right? You got to get it operating so that they'll go to school, they'll follow the rules, whatever the case may be. And
Right.
and I'll say this, and I mean, people may disagree with me, but it's the truth, is that in corrections, I don't care if it's juvenile or adult,
Right.
you have to understand that you as the staff, you're not running that facility. I know that sounds nuts. I know that sounds
Right.
absolutely nuts. You're running
Right.
it because they're allowing you to run it, right?
Right.
It's a pure numbers game, right? If there's
Right.
1,000 incarcerated individuals and there's, let's say, 50 staff on duty, do the
Yeah.
math, right? Do the math. And so, but for whatever reason, they can comply in confinement
Right.
and they can follow the rules and maybe they like the structure, whatever the case may be,
Right.
and they know what they should do, but they get out and all of a sudden it's just like a free world to act up kind of thing, right? Well, juvenile
Yeah.
corrections, it's no different. It's no different. Maybe not quite as extreme violence, if
Right.
that makes sense. Uh,
Right.
you typically don't find like a dead juvenile inmate, right? Like you would
Right.
in an adult inmate system.
Right.
Um, but they're kids, so they're, I mean, in the state of Colorado, you can be 9 years old to be incarcerated, like to be arrested
Wow.
by a cop, okay, on
Wow.
right now. So it doesn't happen often, trust me. It
Right.
rarely, rarely happens, right?
Right.
But once in a while it happens. Once in a while it
Right.
happens. Um, you can be 14 to be charged as an adult in the state of Colorado.
Wow.
And one of the programs I started was for violent juvenile offenders sentenced as adults. And it was a special program, drill instructor, guided group interaction, uh,
Right.
very intense program. And because it was like, okay, if we send 300 of these kids that are between the ages of 14 and 18 on the day of their crime to the big prison, are
Yeah.
we really trying to help them get a better handle on life because now we're going to throw them in.
Right.
And their adult sentence might have been 32 years and they get a suspended sentence for 5 to come to our
Yep.
program that was run by the Department of Corrections. So it's a good deal for them too. They do it a lot less time if they comply, right? And
Right.
what you
Right.
hope is that they don't end up, reoffending and going upstream as an adult. So,
Right.
the thing is in those environments though, because you don't choose any of that stuff, it's not like where you're a CEO of a company and you can hire people and you can do culture fit surveys and you can like no man, like they just show up and you got to deal with them. And
Yeah.
and you got to get them to conform to whatever your norms are basically. So the thing
Right.
is you learn a lot about leadership indirectly, right?
Yeah.
And what matters in leadership and what matters in communication. And really it boils down to if you're fair, and that's a gray area when people have mental health issues and trauma and stuff
Right.
like that, right? It's not
Right.
just black and white. Like
No.
like when there's serious stuff going on, you got to give credence to the person who doesn't quite understand what you're telling them to do, right? But
Right.
it's amazing how other inmates per se will understand that, and they don't feel like you're giving them special treatment. They just understand that that person doesn't quite think like they do. In pro-social terms, it's a term of compassion, right? It's a term of
Right.
understanding, which nobody really
Right.
talks about. But they know that this person is struggling with something that they don't struggle with, right? And
Right.
so the rules might be a little bit different for them. Not the big picture rules, but the day-to-day rules,
Right.
because you're trying
Right.
to get again conformity. Um,
Right.
so you just learn, right, that treating people fairly, treating people equitable, people knowing what the standards are, people knowing what the rules are, people knowing what you expect, reading body language, reading,
Right.
being able to read a room that you can predict when something is off, right? Like something
Right.
is off, man. Is somebody going to get jumped? Is someone going to get drugged to the bathroom? What's going to happen at shower
Mhm.
time? Whatever the case may be, like
Right.
that sixth sense, that gut radar is going on, right?
Right.
And those are the skill sets you learn if you're
Yeah.
successful in those environments. So then as you promote up, you teach others how to work the units, things of this
Right.
nature. And then when you take that to business and entrepreneurship or coaching and things of that nature, it's the same thing, right? It's the same
Yeah.
thing that if I could accomplish that in a system where I couldn't choose anybody, where I couldn't
Right.
choose anybody, then what's your excuse where you're choosing 100% of the people to come work for your company or that you recruit on your college team or you
Right.
draft on your pro team? What's your excuse, right?
Right.
If people can communicate and lead there, guess what? Emulate those skill sets and implement it in your day-to-day life, kind of thing.
Yeah, because then I imagine there's also a different factor because you're dealing with, juveniles who their still brains are still developing. They're still, the energy's higher. It's a completely different, like you said, energy, maybe not as violent, but they're still like, they're still criminals, but they're younger. There's a different, and they're very, I'm assuming they're quite crafty
Oh
and
yeah.
they're quite quick and, and, I imagine that is not an easy environment to even adapt to and can be intimidating. Like I said, the numbers game, if there's 1,000 of them and even 100 of you, you're still
Yeah,
out of,
it's I don't know, I would break it down into like simple buckets. 50% of them are like likable knuckleheads, right? They just, my God, man, they just can't make a good decision if their life depends on it outside, right? But they're like likable kids in the system, like they're pleasant, they're normal,
yeah,
like you're like, why? Why do you keep making bad
yeah,
choices when you get out of here, right? Why?
yeah,
Then you got
right,
like 25% that you're just like, okay, man, you're gonna be a lifer. But they're still
yeah,
like pleasant, right? Like
yeah,
they're like, but you for whatever in their mind, they just don't have any greater goals other than to just be like they're okay being locked up, right? And they're just like,
right,
whatever, right? And you're
right,
again, why? Right?
yeah,
And then there's 25% that you're like, okay, you're from the opposite end of the line, bro. Like
yeah,
and I mean they're victimizers, they're evil, right? They just for
yeah,
whatever reason they just cannot they have zero desire to
right,
ever just kind of be like uh, yeah, they just don't they thrive off of the victimization, and that's really what it is, right? I don't
Right.
care if you steal a Kit Kat or you hold a gun to somebody's head or whatever the case may be. I mean, it's the same
Yeah.
thing, right? You're
Yeah.
you're you're thriving off of that power and control, kind of thing.
Right.
And
Right.
and and those and they typically, those are typically your lifers, right? Because
Yeah.
for whatever reason, for whatever reason, that's just the choice they make, So, with them, I used to always tell them, look, man, if we can, if we can even just help you be a better inmate,
Yeah.
right? That's a
Yeah.
plus, right? That you're not getting
Yeah.
extracted out of your cell, you're not getting restrained, you're not causing the units to get locked down. You're not,
Right.
right? Even if we can just get you, like, that's fine, man. If you don't spend the rest of your life in prison, spend the rest of your life in prison, right? But how
Right.
about we just try to help you be a better inmate, right? Like,
Right.
just don't cause a bunch of chaos, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
why? So it was an
Right.
interesting environment. I mean, I did it for a long time, and I did really enjoy it. I bounced around a lot of different facilities, different agencies, obviously promoted up. But when I look back at it, like when people tell me that I talk about it, they're like, dude, I think you still like love it. Like you still like love that environment. And I don't know, they're probably right. I mean, they're probably right. It's definitely not for everybody, for sure.
No.
Actually, it's not for
No.
most, to be honest.
No.
Yeah, yeah,
No. No. And I imagine that, there's probably maybe even a high turnover rate among those who work in just
yeah,
like the prison, whether it's juvenile or adult
yeah,
facilities.
yeah.
And I mean, I could be wrong, but I think maybe part of you believes that you want to help the ones who have hope to get out of there, and not come back, not be repeat offenders. Maybe like you said, they just keep finding themselves in jackpots, you
Yep,
know.
yep, yeah.
And when I'm curious, like when somebody comes to you, whether it be like a CEO, um, or an athlete or anybody, what is like that? Do you have like an intake you do, or do you have like how do you find out what they need or what the
Well,
problem is?
yeah, that's a funny word, an intake. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of it is as dumb as it sounds, like, what intrigued you to reach out, right? If they see my videos, or they, whatever the case may be, somebody introduced me to me, introduce them to me. I mean, there's obviously some level of pain in some capacity, right?
Right.
And for whatever reason, they've hopefully resonated with me if they've watched some videos or watched me on podcasts or whatever the case may be, where they're like, okay,
Right.
I like this guy's style, right? I like this guy's
Right.
style. I mean, I was told the other day that I have very volatile energy, but that's a compliment. And I said, well, I understand what you meant. All right. I got told by the guy, right? But he was like, no, but that's your style, right? And some
Right.
people, that's what they need, right? They need that, like the intensity of the volatility of your energy, like that's what they need. And I think,
Right.
like it comes down to, really a few things, right?
Right.
What do they want in their future, right? So that might
Right.
be, AKA, I don't quite word it like that, but I'm trying to dig a little bit for, like, okay, what do you want the future to look like for you, right? Because that
Right.
tells me, like, okay, what's going on in their head a little bit. Then I want to figure out, like, what's currently driving them nuts, right? What's frustrating them? What is absolutely driving them nuts right now? And then I
Right.
kind of want to know, what have they tried that hasn't worked?
Right.
Um, have they tried anything? Why didn't it work? Things of that nature. Because then that just gives me some substance to go off of. And then, people, like in sales training, I was like, well, bring in the fear. And it's just like, it's not necessarily the fear of moving forward, but I mean, obviously it took guts to schedule a call and be a little vulnerable with a guy you don't know, right? So does anything scare you regarding moving forward, right? That I
Right.
need to be aware of, kind of thing. And then I think it's
Right.
just kind of like, if we scale 1 to 10, 1 to 5, like how important is this to you? Because, if you tell me this is a 5 out of a 5 or a 10 out of a 10, well, then what you're going to tell me is that, like, you're serious and you're ready to work. So,
Right.
and I'm very fast, right, in how I work. So a lot of it is, I also have to understand their work pace and is a 10 out of 10 the same thing for them as it is for me? Because it might
Right,
not be the same thing, right? For me, a
right,
10 out, they may view my 10 as 100 because they just have a slower methodical work pace. So I have to
right,
recognize that even though they're saying
right,
a 10 out of 10, it doesn't always mean exactly the same thing. So I have, quick little assessments I do. It takes 6 minutes. They choose some words and it starts giving me some data regarding um, how they are innately wired. What are their natural
mhm,
traits, right? Because if I can
right,
understand their natural traits, I can now build a program around them. Because I don't do anything cookie cutter, right? Like
right,
cookie cutter is cookie cutter, right? Um,
right,
and that's not fun. That's not fun for me to do anything
right,
cookie cutter, right? But I
right,
don't believe
right,
in putting people in a box. So
right,
how do I do that? And then it's a lot of it is you know can I be instrumental in helping you create the change that you want to change, right? Am I the right
right,
guy? Or in all
right,
fairness, is there somebody that is maybe better suited for you? So if I see something, like my intensity is kind of scary to them, well, then I'm not the right guy, right? I'm not the
right,
right guy. There's plenty of other guys that do what I do that maybe have a more soothing effect. Now, I'm understanding, but I'm still going to push, right?
right,
Somebody else may be more compassionate with that understanding. And if that's what gives them the desired result and creates that change, then they absolutely should go with that other person, right? So it's
right,
got to be a fit both ways around. And
right,
I'm pretty open and honest about that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Um, Probably to my own detriment because, like you're not taking income in when you tell people like, hey, maybe there's, look for somebody who kind of does this. They might be a better fit for you. But
right,
then, highly visionary people that like to work fast, that are super competitive, super intense. Yeah, that's my cup of tea, right? That's my cup of tea all day long. Right. Like that's my cup of tea all day long because their brains are moving fast. They see things in the future all the time, right? That's absolutely my cup of tea, right? To kind of say, okay, let's get to work. So because then it's stimulating for me too. So
right, yeah.
yeah,
And how do you once you establish with the client that you two are a good fit for each other, how do you set like goals, like attainable goals? Is it again, it's not cookie cutter,
yeah,
but how do you go do goals by like a month, 6 months, or is it how do you break goals down that because what you're talking about some big things like entrepreneurs, big companies, like I
yeah,
mean that's just really fascinating how you can kind
yeah.
of almost
I mean,
restructure
everybody
things like that.
says, right, start at the future and work your plan back, right? So,
Right,
I mean, yes, that's one tool, right? That's one tool, right? Depending if we're talking about scaling revenue or something at very big numbers and they got a 5-year metrics, right? Then it's
right,
it's okay, how do we just work it backwards metric wise to get to this year, right?
right,
Okay, cool. The other 4 years don't really matter, right? Because we got to hit this
right,
metrics to stay on that the rest of the metrics, right? So now from this
right,
metric, okay, what do we now need to do differently to hit it this year? And there's always learning curves, right? Or shifts. So like, my issue with like just doing numbers only is okay, so what happens if you didn't hit the target in January? Like you're already behind, right? So and what if there's some things out of your control of why you didn't hit the target that you have no control. So now you got to wait. You got to wait. No, you got to pivot, right? How do we pivot? So it's kind
right,
of just building it back to saying, okay, what is it again that we can do every single day to improve XYZ that helps us just keep it moving that needle forward? And I know I use that example a lot, but sometimes we're moving 100 needles forward, a week per se in different
right,
departments, and then you have to have buy-in, right? Because just because the
right,
CEO says it doesn't mean that people are going to embrace it, right? Or a
right,
coach says it. So then you got to build in the trust and the buy-in that everybody is not just shaking their head going, oh, yeah, that sounds good, right? No, like, are they committed to doing
right,
it? Because I'm really big on, again, the two-way street. So,
yeah,
you hear people complain about leadership all the time, companies, coaches, whatever the case may be, right?
yeah,
Well, my company needs to do this. Okay, fair. Maybe they do. right? Maybe they do
Right.
this. But
Right.
also let's look in the mirror. What do you need to do, right?
Right.
What do you need to do to get better, right?
Right.
So if it's my word, I write down. I usually only write down one word every day. Like, what's my daily goal? Momentum. Seriously, momentum, right? And
Right.
I just reread The Power of One by Ed Milet. And because I have a leadership book club, I just started it. It's on Zoom, and it's free, right? I'm just looking for people who enjoy reading and want to do thought leadership discussions and stuff like that. So used to do it in person, started doing it in Zoom so the reach could be wider. And
Right.
I read The Power of One in our in-person book club. And so
Right.
I decided for the first book in this leadership performance lab, let's read The Power of One by Ed Milet. It was really good. It was powerful. On Audible, it's really good, right? Everybody
Right.
liked it. And so I did it. And this time, the section that stuck out was equanimity.
Right.
And like it hit me like a Mack truck. So now I write down two
Right.
words. Every day I want to create momentum, but I want to have
Right.
equanimity, right?
Right.
And I think a lot of that is again, so this and the reason I'm telling you this is self-reflection of what can
Right.
you work on, what can you do better? And then your
Right.
company meets and you guys meet in the middle. Guess what? Or you're coaching, you're an athlete and you guys meet in the middle. Guess what? Or you're somebody
Right.
who's dealing with addiction and you meet in the middle with therapists or 12 step, whatever you're planning to do, rehab,
Right.
and you right it's a two-way street to create the
Right.
change. You can't just expect it all from there without doing you, and they can't expect everything on you without them providing the framework or the guideline or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's always a two-way street. So I always look at that, and if I can get internal buy-in from everybody involved that every single day they're going to show up and try to be the best role model they can be. And that's the term I
Right.
use is can they be the best role model they can be for exhibiting that change?
Yeah.
Do you see how that starts to shift everything?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It just starts to shift everything. Right? And I
Yeah.
don't care if you're in 12 step, right? And you're on day two.
Yeah.
Imagine that mindset of like, hey, I'm going to show up and I'm going to be a role model for somebody who's on day one.
Right.
Crazy, right? How it shifts your thinking.
Yeah.
Like, how do I have to act today?
Right.
What do I got to be like in here today? Right? Or whatever the
Right.
case may be, right? I can be friendly. I can go and introduce myself, right? Whatever the case may be. When you use that word role model, it
Yeah.
shifts the way people think.
Yeah. Because people are watching you now, and you feel you have,
Absolutely.
and you're more of an example of what to do or not to do.
Correct.
Like,
Correct.
which one do you want to choose?
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
And plus, I think there's a personal satisfaction for most people when somebody comes in and says, you did this and it helped me. Like I like the way you did that, or I use that in my daily life, and it
Mhm.
made a difference. Like, how does it feel to you when someone you're working with comes to you and says, this really worked. Like this really helped. Like I'm feeling better. Like things are moving in a good direction. How does that make you feel when you hear like positive progress, like when everybody's on board?
I think I mean, if that's your life's purpose, right?
Right.
Then, I mean, it keeps checking the box, right? It gives you
Right.
outside of marketing and testimonials and all that good stuff, it just gives you that internal drive to keep going, right? Because it's a
Right.
painful battle as an entrepreneur, man. I mean, there's no sick time, there's no days off, there's no, right? So what makes you get up and go, right? What makes you
Right.
get up and go? And there's only so much you can read and so many YouTube videos you can watch and things of that nature, right? So when you get affirmation for like, hey man, thank you, right? Like this
Right.
was life changing, or I appreciate you so much, or whatever the
Mm.
case may be, right? It makes you feel complete, right? Like again, just
Right.
like anything else in life where you achieve something. And so then
Yeah.
what's the trick? How do you
Yeah.
duplicate that to whatever pace you want that to be, right? But
Right.
at the end of the day, just a simple thank you. This was so valuable. I appreciate it. And that's why, I mean, I'll be honest with you, like that's why I do a lot of podcasts, right? I'll
Yeah.
apply, I physically apply, right,
Yeah.
to speak on a variety of different podcasts because
Right.
of all kinds of audiences. Because I
Yeah.
feel like if somebody watches a 30-minute podcast, 45-minute podcast, and I
Right.
said something that just like flipped the switch in your head, the light bulb went off.
Right.
I may never know that, right? I may never know that. I mean,
Right.
physically never know that. You may physically never know that. But
Right.
somewhere in this world is energy. Somewhere in this world is karma. Somewhere in
Right.
this world, right?
Right.
And just by doing good, even though you don't see the return on investment per se,
Right.
like you potentially change somebody's life, right? And
Right.
especially like your audience, right?
Right.
That that might be in the in the digs of the deep forest, right? When they listen
Right.
to this podcast, right?
No.
And all of a sudden they're like, man, that dude was a little crazy, but you know what? He said this and wham, right? Kind of thing, like
Right.
like wham. So I think it's one of those things. I think when you're in AKA the service business, right? And I
Right.
think that's what I do, that's what you do, that's what restaurants do, that whatever
Right.
hospital, whatever the case may be, right?
Right.
At the end of the day, obviously you want to make money because you need to live, right? And you want
Right.
whatever
Right.
lifestyle you want. But at the end of the day, something's driving you
Yeah.
to give to others or to be that role model to others, right? Whatever it is,
Right.
whatever it is, maybe you were naturally wired this way, maybe it was a personal story. I don't know, whatever it is, something's driving you to kind of say
Right.
like, hey man, I'm gonna touch the world in my way, kind of thing.
Right.
And I think that's special and that's unique because we're not just trying to kind of float, right? Just float through the
No.
world with like
No.
it's not
No.
purposeful enough for us, right?
No.
To just
No.
float. Yeah.
No. And I like what you said about having like an internal purpose. And even if like someone hears this and they're changed by something that you said, I feel it puts like a good energy back to you that's going to come back around,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it could kind of create that ripple effect, which is so important.
Yeah, for sure.
I was interested, can you talk a little bit about your book, The
Yeah,
Formula for a Balanced Life,
yeah. So
how that came about?
yeah, self-published. Had no idea what I was doing. I did it in like 2012, 2013. And for context, this is 2026. Seriously, I had like no idea what I was doing. And I hadn't bought a course and I was like, I'm just gonna figure it out on like www dot, right? Because we were those internet days, that's what you were doing. And it came from the motivation came from I would always get asked like, how do you do so much? Right.
Right.
And let me give some context to that. So, I had my oldest daughter at 19. I was in college. I was an athlete. Um, and I didn't drop out of school. And I still stayed competing. And I was a father. And I worked two
Wow.
jobs. And those were kind of the rules my parents set on me, right? They were like, hey, if you
Right.
stay in school, you stay as an athlete, you do the right thing, we'll support you, right?
Right.
But if you drop out of school or you stop competing, then you can just go be an adult, right? So I was like, well, okay,
Right.
fair. And that's actually the reason I didn't make it to medical school because I didn't have the grades. Right? I barely graduated with
Right.
a 2.000. And medical school was gonna look at my application, right? But I mean, I mean, I had just a crazy life.
Look what else you were doing though.
And so, so through that, you know, I had a very successful career, in government service, and I was still very, obviously with my kids and athletes and stuff like that. So people were always, then I leave government service and I open up numerous businesses and I do this. Some I do well, some I fail, right? Things of that nature.
Yeah.
I got a master's degree, right? So people were like, my dude, like, do you ever run out of like energy? Like, how do you do all this? And I was like, well, it's not difficult. And they were like, it is. And I was like, it's
Mhm.
not. So then I was like, well, maybe I should like compartmentalize my thoughts for myself, right? And
Right.
write a little book. So what I did is I said, okay. And at this point I was speaking on the real estate TV shows and everybody
Mhm.
kind of does again, well, how much money do you want to make? And I was like,
Right.
fine, I'm going to provide more value. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I kind
Right.
of said, okay, right, you guys all paid a lot of money to be in this room and take these courses and work with this program. Well, let's just talk about these 9 principles. And the principles I talk about is money, time, health, having fun, giving back, protecting your family, enhancement, support, and why. And so
right,
what I said is what happens in the world is we tend to only focus on like one or two things.
right,
But the reality is you need to have all 9 of these popping every single day. Like every day you wake up, have all 9 of these popping. So if you think about that, we break that down simply real quick. Okay, money's money, right? Whether you go to work, whether you're taking a course, whether you want to start an investment thing, whatever the case may be, right? Like, okay,
right,
money has to be important, right? Because it
right,
creates opportunity, it pays your bills, things of that nature.
right,
So every day, wake up with some sort of money vision, right? You're going to get better
right,
so you can make more money.
right,
Number two is your time. Once it's gone, it's gone.
yeah,
So what you meant to do today that you didn't do is gone. Like that day's gone, man. It doesn't come back. It's all like money where you can replace money. Time is not replaceable. So
no,
how do you want to structure your day to where your time is now a valuable asset to you?
right,
And so then that's when we start talking about balance, right?
right,
Health. What does do you any good to go and chase a ton of money if you're really unhealthy? Like I have a news flash for you. It's only going to insurance and hospitals, right?
yeah,
And long-term hospice care and stupid places like that. So do your part to be healthy and quit making it so
yeah,
difficult. Now, I enjoy the gym, I enjoy lifting, I enjoy training hard, I still enjoy sparring and stuff like that. Well, that's not for everybody. That's not for everybody.
right,
So I don't know, go on a 25-minute walk once a day. How about this? Twice a day, right?
yeah,
Drink a little bit of water every day, right? Versus 26 Mountain Dews or whatever the case may be.
yeah,
And let's just start scaling things in to have a little bit more healthy lifestyle, right? Just
right,
just day by day, month by month. Then having fun. You got to build in some sort of enjoyment for yourself, for your family, for you and your spouse, whatever the case may be, right?
right,
You within your means, right? I don't know what your means
right,
are, right? But you just got to build in some time where it's like we can chill. We can relax. I'm
right,
not going to be on my phone. I'm not going to be answering emails, whatever the case may be, right? Build in that quality time to have fun.
right,
Giving back. I tell people this all the time. It's not that hard. And I get it. Some people are like, well, like I buy a toy for the Marine Corps, Toys for Tots. Well, good for you, right? If you consider that good for you, shame on you. Like, so,
right,
and I get it. Some people, obviously, they all need money, right? So big donors like to just write checks. Well, that's not that meaningful. What they really
right,
need is hands and they need time,
right,
right?
right,
So, how about you find, I don't care what it is, find
right,
something that floats your boat. Maybe you can build it into your business plan. You can build it into your family plan and just go and help others with whatever the case may
right,
be, right?
right,
Whatever is important to you. There's plenty of places where you don't have to give money, but you can give time. And you know
right,
what? And if you're in a position where you can give money to assist, or I don't like to just write a check. So if people want money, I'm like, okay, well, how do we contribute and we're hands off? Because then
right,
I know where the money's going, right? Because
right,
it's hands on, right?
right,
That's just a personal thing with me, right? And
right,
so those are just kind of my rules. And then protecting your family, it's
yeah,
it's not about the right to bear arms. It's
right,
it's about in the event, if you're the breadwinner, you're the decision
yeah,
maker. Do
yeah,
you have things in place in the event something traumatic happened to you that your
right,
family would be taken care of? A simple life insurance policy. Do you have things where they're not having to be overwhelmed by the bureaucratics of death because they're
right,
grieving your loss. Their focus should be
right,
on you grieving your loss, not worried about probate and estate and life insurance and
right,
all this other nonsense because
right,
it's really simple to fix for very little amounts of money, right? I mean, you can get a cheap
right,
term policy depending on your health, so 20 bucks a month, whatever, right?
right,
There's LegalZoom, there's all these places that will do your will for $5. I mean, they're so simple, it's simple, right? Now, if your
yeah,
life is more complex, you make a lot more money, you have a lot more assets, well, okay, then you need to hire a little bit more of a competent attorney to
right,
help you with that stuff, right?
right,
But if you just lead a simple cookie cutter life, it's not that difficult, right?
right,
So then the personal enhancement goes back to reading, podcasts. Like, what are you doing to make yourself better? What are you doing
right,
to make yourself better every single day? And like we can go 75 hard, read 10 pages a day. That's not that hard. Like,
no,
that is not that hard. Like, okay, I
no,
don't. I'm not that great on a physical book. I do Audible a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I combine it with, working out, right? And especially if I'm doing cardio. So now you got the health and you got the personal enhancement, and they're hand in hand every single day. Then, as
Yeah.
far as the support system, it's okay. It's simple. Who are your dream fulfillers and who are your dream killers? Know the list. Know the list. Your job, you might not be able to eliminate dream killers. Hell, you might be married to one, you might be related to one. Okay, so they're just there. Just quit talking to them about your dreams, right?
Yeah.
Because they're
Yeah.
dream killers. So quit talking about your dreams because you're allowing them to kill your dreams. So talk about your dreams with dream fulfillers. And who are dream fulfillers? Those are just people that are happy for you. They want to see you succeed. It doesn't mean that they're always going to give you an answer that you want to hear, because sometimes they're going to challenge your thinking, right?
Yeah.
But they embrace whatever it is that you want to do that's positive, right? Like let's put a little context. Like, well, let's go do some fentanyl. No, my friends, that's a dream killer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me,
No. Yeah.
right. Even if you're
Healthy choices. Healthy choices.
right and you're watching this, like, please, right? No, they're
Yeah.
a dream killer, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, it's just one of those things to just say, okay, I'm going to surround myself around these people, and I tell people have 1 to 5 people. That's it.
Yeah.
1 to 5 that you can call, that every time you hang up, you feel like $1 million.
Yeah.
So when you're on that path of self-destruction,
Yeah.
second guessing yourself, wondering if you can do something, have someone you can call that you know their personality sparks the best out of you. That's a dream fulfiller, right? Doesn't
Yeah.
matter what they do in their life. It's their personality sparks the best out of you. And the last thing is your why. And I don't know what your why is. I don't know why you want to live, why you want to be financially free, why you want to have a boat. I don't know, whatever. You might have a million things you want, and it's not for me to judge. But at the end of the day is why what? Like, what do you want your purpose to be? Right? And why?
Yeah.
Right? That's the most
Yeah.
general way I can say it, right? What do you want your purpose to be and why? Something's got to drive it, and it's
Yeah.
got to drive it so bad that my example is, if we go 10 miles out in the ocean, boat capsizes, water is super cold, it's like 150 degrees. You don't have rubber dinghies, you don't have lifeboats, you don't have scuba equipment, you don't have wetsuits. Like, the water is cold and it's 10 miles out and you got 10, 12-foot waves. Would you give up or would you still try to swim?
Yeah.
And your answer needs to be, I'll still try to swim. So
Yeah.
your why needs to match, I'm still going to try to swim. Now, the odds are against you in that ocean, but
Yeah.
you're not going to give in, right? You're still
Yeah.
going to keep fighting, right? So when you can find your fire
Yeah.
for your why, that's that burning, guess
Yeah.
what? And every day, now that I just laid that out for you, it's
Yeah.
not hard to implement every day to have
No.
all 9 of those buckets
No.
working every single day. It's not hard.
No.
It's not
No.
hard. It just takes like
No.
3 minutes of planning, right? That's it. So quit
Yeah.
making it hard. So then,
Yeah.
instead of like, oh, how do you get, just implement my plan. That's it. Simple.
Yeah. No, I love what you said about protecting your family, because it keeps it, because you're right. You know, when it keeps them protected from like all that ugliness of the courts and everything like that. And that's the point, is one less thing you have to worry about as well too.
Yep. Yep.
It's not in the back of your head, oh my God, I got to do this. It's done. Just do it. And it's not something you have to think about every single day.
Hmm.
And I like how you highlighted about giving back, not just money, writing a check, but getting involved, getting your hands on. Because sometimes I think it's easy too to write a check and be like, oh, I did my part. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with writing a check. But sometimes I think it can help you as a person when you go in person and you see who you're helping and what you're doing. And like you said, get your hands involved and you know where the money's going. And then you never know who you're going to help by being their hands on either.
Yep. Yep.
Whether it be a soup kitchen or animal shelter, hospital, whatever. It's important to be there in person if you can.
Yep. Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
know, and when you break it down, 9 sounds hard, but it's really not.
Oh,
It's something that you can, like, fitness and your why and your purpose and your dream killers and dream fillers. That's a huge one.
Yeah.
These are all it's like you said, it's not that difficult.
No. Yeah.
You just gotta do a little bit of plan.
Yeah. A little bit of planning. Like it's so simple. It's so simple. So that's how I would start all those real estate. I spoke for those shows for
Yeah,
6 years. I'd average about
yeah,
44 events a year. And that's how I opened
yeah,
it up with these 9 principles. And I said, I know you
yeah,
guys want to get going on real estate. I get it. That's what you paid for.
yeah,
Just give me
yeah,
45 minutes to run through this because trust me, it'll make sense on how I'm going to teach you when I leave 3 days later. Of
yeah,
this is bigger than wanting to flip houses or buy rentals and things of that nature, right?
right,
That's just a vehicle for more assets for more money, right? But
right,
what do you want your overall life to look like, right?
right.
And so now, because real estate's hard, flipping houses can be hard, tenants can be hard, all that stuff can be hard.
Oh yeah,
So now when that why is, hey, what's the real purpose we want to create financial freedom? What's the real purpose we want to do this, whether it's charitable, personal, for your family, for whatever the case may be, it just drives deeper. So when you're having those bad days, because they're going to come,
right,
you
right.
now can just reflect back on, okay, we understand our bigger purpose, we understand our bigger mission. And so, yeah, and thanks for bringing up the book actually, because I mean, it doesn't even have a back cover, right? Like nobody told me www dot didn't tell me like create a back cover for the book. So it's so stupid when I got it printed out. It's 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 the front. I have a front cover, and on the back cover,
Right.
I'm like, oh, crucial mistake. But it's got a picture of a camera because back in the day, uh,
Oh,
right, like where you were supposed to like insert an image or whatever the case may be,
right.
didn't like the camera. So I'm like, well, I guess it's telling you to take a picture of yourself, right? And like reevaluate, right? And you know what I mean? I only sold it to like family and friends, right? It was dirt cheap, and it's on Kindle. I don't know, it's probably like $1.99 or $2.99 or something like that. And it's really weird that you bring it up because I've been having premonitions of like I should write another book. Right now I'm Dr. Al Philip-Neri, right? I've
Right,
got my cohesion HQ, right? I've got
right,
I've got the formula for the balanced life,
right.
you know, and kind of combining it all, right? And
Yeah,
I think I need to think through that a little bit of what that would look like. Uh,
yeah,
or is it, a series of books like I rewrite the formula of balanced life and then there's kind of a more of a leadership thing that maybe is extracted because I got some ideas planning me. Like people were like, "Hey, use your prison leadership, man. This stuff's intriguing. Like it's crazy
yeah,
listening to you, right? And
yeah,
how you di took leadership in there, and then you're applying it to everyday business, everyday world, everyday coaching,
yeah,
right? So maybe that's book number three, and then or book number two, and then book number three in the series is all about how do you create a cohesive culture, right? How do you have
yeah,
cohesion that performs under pressure, which yields a positive culture, right? And that's all my
right,
PhD research and things of that nature. And maybe it's a three-parter kind of thing, and I
right.
and I and I keep having it. So that's I was uh, unaware we were going to chat about the book today. So, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, you're great. Like, thank you for doing it
Okay.
because it keeps coming back into my life like this, right?
Yeah,
It just keeps coming back into my life in regards to, hey man, I think it's time that you work on this. This is like your next project. You know what I mean? Like,
great.
PhD done. Now, what's next, right? And so,
Universe is telling you to write another book.
yeah, like the world is telling me, like, rewrite these. You
Yeah,
have knowledge to offer, and people that will read your stuff are going to get something out of it, right? And so yeah, so thank you actually for bringing it up because
you're welcome.
you edified it like unintentionally,
Well,
so
I it has such an interesting like background and story and um like how it's all come together that I think if you really write another book or even another two books, there's so much there to do that with, you know. And I think you'll just continue to expand your reach to who you'll help and to who you'll affect with your message and the principles.
Yeah.
Because I think
Yeah.
there's definitely an audience for those that have been in corrections and those who made it through corrections, whether it be juvenile or adult.
Mhm.
Because they'll relate to what you're saying because they lived it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
As I definitely think there's a big audience for that, and I really hope that you do go down that road and revamp it or create another story, create another book for yourself.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, and you're right. There's a lot of incarcerated people. Formerly, some are doing really, really well,
Right.
really, really well. And I mean, some of these guys I follow on YouTube, Instagram,
Hmm.
and stuff like that. I mean, man, what a life altering change that they made, and
Yeah.
maybe social media was the right tool that helped them do that, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
They're bold, they're brash, right? So they'll say
Right.
what's on their mind. I mean, there's guys I know that have gotten out of prison that are very successful in the stock market, and they're really, really giving back to their community,
Right.
and just dropping info and nuggets. I mean, just very doing some really, really powerful stuff. And then there's
Right.
guys that are on the verge of going back, and you're like, dude, you're
Yeah.
50. Like, no,
Yeah. Don't.
like, no, like no, let's figure it out, right? Let's
Yeah.
figure it out. But for whatever reason, or guys who are, they've got out after 36 years, 27 years, it's all they know, and that's adult time. Like tack on,
Mm.
5, 6 years of juvie time on top of that. Again, it's where they're comfortable. So now, like coming out to the real world seems like vacation because home is really prison, right? And,
Yeah.
and so,
Right.
it's kind of like, well, what do you do with that? Because there's a system, that's a whole different podcast. As a
Right.
system where we're dropping the ball. We're just
Yeah.
we're we're really really dropping the ball for those that really want to create change. So
Yeah.
you know,
I believe you really do want to create change. I like your energy. I think when you invite someone into your company, into your life to help you, I think you need that energy. You want someone to be excited about what they do
mhm.
and believe in what they do and live what they do. Because it's one thing to like give a course, it's another thing to live it,
Yeah.
and you apply these 9 strategies to your life.
Yep.
And I think that's important. And I think that you can definitely tell when someone's being genuine and authentic with how they present themselves.
Yeah.
And is there any last words you want to leave anyone with? If they're
Um, no, I mean, I'm here to help. Um, so I'm here to do more podcasts for you, for others, and so. Um, so I want to be a tool. I want to be a resource, to help create change, right? And so if I relate to you, you got value out of me. Um, let's figure it out. What the next
yeah.
steps look like, kind of thing. What's the next steps look like? And it's interesting because other people have planted seeds. They're like, I don't have the time to, aka like create a podcast like what you're doing, right? And
Right.
I admire that. And so, but people are like, man, you should create a podcast for people that were incarcerated that are now out, right? And so your audience,
Oh, right.
and I'm like, because again, you're going to get all walks of life, right? If you can get somebody who feels comfortable being on camera, sharing their story, right, things of that nature, right? Because they could have done some pretty heinous,
Right. Right. Yeah.
right?
May
Things
not
that,
want to share that.
yeah, not so proud of. And but I got the point, right? The,
Right.
the point
Right.
is that, you know, at the end of the day, everybody has, maybe not everybody, but everybody has bad choices. Some are way worse than others, skeletons in their closet. And
Right.
it's how do you move through those and not let them hold you back forever, or know that you have the potential to create the change, right? XYZ and things of that nature. And so, you just make it as like, again, where somebody looks at it where, I'll give a shout out to Wall Street Trapper. He's a guy who did a bunch of time in New Orleans, learned how to trade
Okay.
stocks in prison. And he
Okay.
went down adult at 16 years old. Um,
Wow.
and he got out, started working as like an iron worker, and started, doing some of the stuff that he was learning in all those years in prison in stocks and reading and watching
Right.
CNN. And he's funny. He's funny. And he's a funny guy. And he's really, really dedicated to, I mean, he's African American, so a lot of his audience is
Mhm.
African American, but he's really, really dedicated on teaching people that the stock market doesn't care what race you are, what nationality,
Right,
what gender, what sexual preference, what religion. And,
right,
instead of lining up to buy the new iPhone for $1,600, like, how about
right,
you go buy some Apple stock, right? And do it on
right,
Robinhood, you get fractional shares, right? Like, I mean, I mean, I'm part of his community. I actually pay to be part of his community. And,
right,
and I mean, what he's doing, big picture, is like phenomenal. Like, it's phenomenal what he's
right,
doing, and he also brings it real, right? Like,
right,
oh, you guys are mad because I'm charging you $49, but you'll go buy a new iPhone that you don't even need because you just have the latest one, right? So he
right,
challenges that thinking, right? Which is,
right,
I could say, lack of better terms, kind of an inner city, like, poor mentality. Like, you have the money, well, because you don't have
right.
much. So if you can have the new Jordans or you can have the new iPhone, like, it's a sense of you think it's a sense of uh,
Like value for
status,
you, like,
yeah, value,
yeah,
right? Or the
yeah,
Louis, something like that, right?
right,
At the end of the day, you're hurting on the back end, right? But you're
right,
trying to showcase this persona going forward, kind of thing. And he does a real good job of confronting. But he's I mean, he does a YouTube live on Tuesdays. He goes, it's long. It's like 3 hours. The brother be
oh,
rolling.
okay.
But he has like 2,000 people like watching him live on Tuesday evenings. Like
Yeah,
2,000 people
on
watching him
Tuesdays.
for hours. And I'm
Yeah,
like, bro, like, keep going. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it. So again, it's just people like that, right? But there's a lot
right,
of guys that look up to him. There's guys who are now they're in prison, right? And they're learning about stocks. And then when they get out, they
right.
can't wait to apply some of their knowledge and things of that nature. So slowly by slowly, I mean, that's just one example, right? It's just slowly by slowly, but look at how he's changing the pendulum, right? And he's changing people's lives. And so, yeah, so, if somebody feels like I can offer value and offer service and help change, then please, like, reach out to me, right? And I'll be on your podcast. We'll connect. Maybe you want my services, depending on your needs and things of that nature. We'll connect and let's get it done. We'll figure out a way to
Yeah,
work.
because you're on LinkedIn, you're on Instagram, you're on TikTok,
Yeah,
you're on Facebook.
yeah.
Did I miss any?
No, I am on YouTube too.
YouTube as well. Okay.
Yeah, so
And you still have alphilipneri.com?
yeah, I still
Yep.
have that. I also have teamcohesionhq.com.
Okay.
But yeah, like, probably, social media would probably be the whatever form
Okay.
you use just for somebody to message me, would probably be the quickest way for me to most efficient to get back to them.
And I'm gonna put all those in the show notes so everybody knows how to get a hold of you.
Cool.
Um, and I want to thank you for taking the time with us today to share like your experience, your 9 strategies for success, about you, about what you do, about performance psychology. I think you shined a light on a lot of things.
Cool.
Just moving the needle just a little bit is important, you
Absolutely.
know.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Dr. L. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
you.
Thank you, Kat.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.